Hello my friends and welcome. Now we're going to clarify some of the details relative to the air crash which happened to Azerbaijani Embraer E190 in Aktau, Kazakhstan. I recorded kind of the big initial video yesterday, so I highly recommend you to watch it. I'll put it down in the link below for you, because here it will be just clarification of some of the moments of the crash. Well, since we don't have the initial investigation report, I refer to those kind of the websites as Aviation Herald. They collect the information and publish the details of what happened, and the new information is marked with yellow color. So it's been confirmed that both of the pilots definitely lost their lives. Yes, because it was the impact towards the nose part of the airplane. Well, luckily the wings just disassembled from the fuselage. They went off and caught fire, so the aft part of the fuselage stayed with just minor deformations, and that's why some people survived this air crash. And also now with the tail part we have the evidence that definitely this airplane was shot down. And already we have the information that Kazakhstan aviation authorities are leading this investigation. It's the usual practice according to ICAO standards. So in the country in which the accident happens, starts and leads the investigation. But obviously there will be representatives from Azerbaijani side and also from Brazil. So here they say about it, supported by the accident investigators from Azerbaijan and Brazil's Sanipa, manufacturer of the aircraft. So three of the main parties, but the head of this investigation is Kazakhstan. Azerbaijani president stated on a conference that the bad weather forced the aircraft to divert. And probably it was my mistake yesterday about the weather in Grozny airfield, because if we check the weather, the visibility was 3,500 meters, boom, the clouds overcast down to 800 feet. Now I say that this weather is fine because runway 26 is equipped with an ILS approach. But the chart which I took to review the minimums dated 4 years ago. Usually there are no any changes or just minor changes, but here I've been told by colleagues who has an update for the new version of the Jepson that ILS for runway 26 is out of service. It means that the minimum is much higher than it is shown over here for the system. So in this case it could be JLS approach or as usual AirNav approach. But for AirNav approach you actually need the GPS signal which was jammed by the time. So here we go with NDB approach, and here there could be some of the variance because the weather conditions definitely were marginal for this type of the approach. As the passengers told that airplane tried to land in Grozny, there was the missed approach. Some passengers said that even there were two of the go-rounds. Also passengers reported the loud bang and the diversion of the airplane happened next. Later on in this video we're gonna return to why the aircraft definitely diverted to Aktau, because there were some of the speculations about this feature in internet I found. But first of all, the good thing that at the press conference it was confirmed that the black boxes, so flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder boxes, they're usually placed in the aft part of the airplane, so they've been recovered and will be decoded soon. Usually it takes not more than a week. So they might be sent to the Embraer maintenance centers in Europe somewhere or to original country of the manufacturer, Brazil. And here on Aviation Herald we don't have the rest of the data, and by the way they did not publish the picture of the shrapnel tail. Here you can roughly see it, but from the close perspective I'll show you in this video again. And what does media tell us about the story, because some of the officials might already obtain some of the information. Well, the big media corporations like BBC, CNN, they do not say that the airplane was shut down, even though we have the evidence of the shrapnel tail, which only might be caused by ground-to-air missile, whether it was man-pad, but I think it was the Panzer S system which was recently delivered to Chechnya. However, at the same time, I have the information that Chechens themselves didn't operate the Panzer S. It was done separately by the forces of the Russian Ministry of Defense, and Z channels, so Russian patriotic channels, write about it. News article, they say exclusive preliminary investigation confirms Russian missile caused Azerbaijan Airlines crash. Yes, I also think like that. Azerbaijani government sources have exclusively confirmed to Euronews on Thursday that Russian surface-to-air missile caused the crash. But here it's kind of strange. Government sources have told Euronews that damaged aircraft was not allowed to land at any Russian airports despite pilots' request for an emergency landing, and it was ordered to cross across Caspian Sea towards Aktau, Kazakhstan. So again, if we go to the flight radar 24 and we check out the track of the airplane, which is absent here because the GPS was jammed. So Euronews tells us that all of the Russian airports were closed for this particular airplane. They were not allowed to land with an emergency. Well, for me, as for an airline pilot, it sounds unrealistic. Well, I understand that everything might happen in Russia, but this, like if you have an emergency, if you declared Mayday, it's 100% free way to any sort of the airport. So ATC must, absolutely must do everything to assist you in any country. So if they say that we cannot handle you, go away to the sea, please. It's like openly declaring that you're killing the airplane. And knowing that everything is recorded on the airplane, there is also the cockpit voice recorder, but there is also the recording coming from the ATC. So for sure, if something happens, everything will be decoded. So I don't think that really ATC told that. I think that the weather in Grozny, we understand, was marginal for the NDB approach. It is non-precision approach. Makhachkala, the weather also was marginal. So the probability for the Russian air traffic control to deny the assistance of the airplane, I think it's low, very, very low. I would be really surprised if they found this out. Like, I cannot imagine it even in Russia. So I think my idea, like what I think right now, yes, I'm speculating about the topic, that crew understood that the weather in Aktau was more than 10 kilometers at least, if we speak about visibility. And with the flight control system problems they have, they at least can do something, like some of the visual approaches and so on. Also, the terrain there is pretty much flat, but Makhachkala, you have basically mountains nearby. In Grozny, also not far away. So again, I'm telling you that it was a proper decision to divert to Aktau. From all of the airports nearby, it was the best one for the weather, for the terrain, and for the circumstances the crew faced with. And for now, I do not believe in speculations that Russian air traffic control really denied landing for the aircraft. Conditions were not okay for that landing. That's the story. And we don't have the real evidence of that, just an article in Euronews, like about the airplane being shut down. I'm saying about it because we see what happened to the tail part of the airplane, and the outcome was the loss of the flight controls basically. So the airplane was only manipulated with the thrust of the engines. Knowing what I do on my other YouTube channel, I guess it's hard to accuse me that I love Russia so much, but I still think that airplane diverted to Aktau because pilots wanted to divert there. So the information which was posted on Euronews is hard to cross-check because there is basically no evidence. Yes, they refer to Azerbaijani officials, but the only source which can prove it is investigation team. It's not a huge problem to take the aircraft from the water, and the cockpit voice recorder plus flight data recorder would be okay even in that case. So, and the shrapnelled tail of the airplane also would be recovered in this case. I think instead the Russians were more interested for the airplane to land in Russia. That is how they might hide something, at least not showing the photos of the tail during the initial part of the investigation. But instead, airplane landed now in Kazakhstan, and Russia is not involved basically in this investigation. So they cannot do anything really. Well, they may try to push Kazakhstan, it's their neighbor, but we'll see. I think Kazakhstan is more or less independent with this case. But counting all of that, we have the evidence that the airplane was definitely hit from the outside by the air defense missile, because the air defense missiles release those kind of the rectangular type of the shrapnel, especially Panzer 1S. So even without investigation team, it is understandable that this damage caused the problems with flight controls of the airplane. It's like 2 + 2 = 4. That's why I'm saying about it so firmly. But the rest of the speculations about air traffic control and so on, I would leave it aside for the moment, because it's really hard definitely to obtain the evidence. Here we see it, right? So the airplane was shut down, but the other stuff, no, we should wait for at least initial report. The Russian media initially reported about the bird strike, and definitely pilots could have thought that it was a bird strike. I mean, they might felt this impact and thought, okay, we hit something. What is in the air? Birds. In their worst nightmare, they couldn't imagine that they've been hit by the Russian missile. For this reason, they could speak about the bird strike between themselves, so it could be recorded on the cockpit voice recorder. Also, they could report that they had the bird strike to the air traffic control, but pilots don't have their eyes in the tail unit, in the empennage. They don't have the camera there as well to check out whether it was the bird strike really or not. But here, guys, we clearly see that it wasn't the bird strike, or birds fly with grenades. And you see here, especially, you can see the rectangular shape of something which hit the airplane. I also heard some of the experts saying that it could be the engine which went to the airplane, but no, it doesn't work like that. There were the cases where the rotor, the compressor or turbine of the engine just blown apart, but it doesn't cause that shrapnel damage. Yes, the airplane's been hit in several of the parts and near the engine itself, not in the tail of the airplane, no. And you know, for now, Russian media doesn't know what to say. They just prefer not to speak about this topic in general. But the Russian military channels, that they confirm that it's the most probable reason, as they say that this airplane definitely was shut down by their own air defense, and they also condemn this fact. They say that it was done by mistake. Well, everything in Russia is done by mistake because they just cannot handle their own system, you know. There were recently some of the oil tankers which crashed near the Kyrgyz Bay, and the lots of the oil poured into the water. The oil tankers didn't supposed to be located there in that stormy weather. They should have left the area well before, and the tankers themselves, they were very, very old. So I understand that, yes, Russians didn't want to hit Azerbaijani airplane. They didn't need it, really, but it happened. It happened because Russia is Russia. Probably Malaysian Boeing was also shut down by mistake, but Russia said, no, it wasn't us. By the way, I want to clarify that case that definitely Ukraine closed the airspace up to 10,000 feet as far as I remember, but higher, no. Ukraine thought that pro-Russian separatists didn't have some of the air defense system capable to fly higher, but in fact they had, so they've shut down Boeing 777. But even with that, I think that the airspace should have been closed entirely. Not over all of the Ukraine by the time, but just over Donbass. Because few hours before the crash, somehow Russia closed their airspace bordering Ukraine. And pro-Russian militants reported that they've obtained the Buk air defense. So yes, Russia is guilty, they've shut down Malaysian Boeing. But I think that there should be more proactive action done by Ukraine. Ukraine is not to blame for this attack done by Russia, but yeah, obviously some of the extra measures should have been complied. By the way, it's my personal attitude. It has nothing to do with official investigation result. And in case of Azerbaijan Air Crash, obviously Grozny Airport at least should have been closed for operation during the drone attack. It's nonsense to receive the international commercial traffic by the time your city is being attacked by the drones. And again, guys, I wouldn't recommend for anyone to fly to Russia to avoid those kind of the cases happening. Russia is in a war state against the neighboring country, and that neighboring country, so Ukraine, has the right to defend itself. That's why there are some of the drones hitting different type of the infrastructure in Russia, and in most of the cases Russia has commercial airfields at the same airport with the military that fly and bomb Ukraine, and Ukraine may respond, and there could be, unfortunately, circumstances. And by the way, it's the reason also not to go to other places in our globe where there are some of the military conflicts involving air defense. Well guys, I think the next time I will update you, then we'll receive more of the information about the case. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky.